Hi. If you saw Dune 2, you heard the lovely Duduk, played masterfully by Pedro Eustache, play a large part in its soundtrack by Hans Zimmer. While nothing compares to the real thing, my friend Isak, who is both a Duduk and Arp 2600 fan, came up with a lovely patch that sounds pretty close on his Atonus 2600. I adapted the patch to the 2600M, and since it sounded really good and there are a few neat synthesis tricks here, I thought I'd share them with you. In case you don't have a 2600, no worries, I'll share a multi-sample of this patch on my Patreon. Let's get right into it. There are a few things that make this patch sound really good in my opinion. Before I get to those, I'll cover a few basic settings. What you're hearing is a heavily filtered sawtooth waveform. This gives us the flute-like characteristics of a triangle waveform with the option to open it up and add more harmonics if we want, which we do with the filter envelope. I'm using Oscillator 2 in LFO mode to add vibrato using FM to the frequency of VCO3 to give it just a bit of vibrato. The envelopes, both the attack release envelope, which controls the VCA, and the ADSR envelope, which controls the filter, are set to slow attack and release times, a low sustain with a decay that will give it a nice ramp up, and then down into the sustain level to try and match how the Duduk is played in the soundtrack. And then, of course, as in the movie, everything goes through plenty of reverb. In this case, the natural spring reverb of the Arp 2600, which is in stereo. You can obviously add additional reverb to taste in post. So those are the basics, and like I said, 3 things make this patch special. First, something you can't do on many synths. While most synths do have noise that can be fed into the filter, because I'm applying so much filtering here, you can't really hear the noise that goes into the filter. So rather, I've got the noise generator patched in post-filter into the VCA, and then I'm letting just a smidge of it in to taste so that you can constantly hear it unfiltered, as Hans Zimmer says, like the wind through the sands of Arrakis. If your synth has dual filters and you can route them in parallel, you can pull off this trick with unfiltered noise in parallel to the filtered sawtooth waveform. Then the second thing that makes this patch special, and the thing I think most differentiates a Duduk, say, from a regular flute, is how the sound occasionally distorts when Pedro plays it just right. And that's why the filter output is passed through the preamp and then back into the signal chain here. The idea here is to have it clip just a bit as the filter envelope opens up and is driven into the preamp. So this, for example, is how it sounds without a lot of drive. You can hear the noise. Maybe let's lower it for a bit. And then set it to taste just on the very edge of clipping. I think that's the real magic of this patch. And then the third thing that I think makes it sound more natural is the option to add even more vibrato using Aftertouch. The Arp 2600M doesn't have this feature built in over MIDI, but you can set the KeyStep in a mode where Aftertouch takes over the mod output, and then take that Aftertouch control voltage mod output, plug it into the ring mod circuit, which acts as a VCA, like I showed in my Arp 2600 video, and then patch the output of the ring mod into the FM of Oscillator 3. And this too you set to taste, so we've got vibrato coming in from VCO2 regardless of Aftertouch. That's this guy here. Then we can enhance it with Aftertouch, again to taste. And then you set the vibrato rate using the oscillator frequency controls of VCO2, both coarse tuning and fine tune. Then one bonus consideration here is the filter type, depending on the kind of distortion you want, and the preamp level, of course. So that's pretty much it for this patch. Obviously, it doesn't compare to a real Duduk or Pedro playing it, but a pretty nice and unique sound regardless, I think. Like I mentioned, I'll upload a multi-sample of this patch to my Patreon, where you can find all these patch ideas and many more in my book. Hit like if this was useful. Ring the YouTube bell if you want to see more. Thanks for watching.